Doubt is a silent chain that binds you more tightly than any external force. It creeps into your mind, whispers hesitation, and clouds clarity. Most people live as servants to their own uncertainty, allowing fear and indecision to dictate their choices. But what if you could break free from that servitude? What if the power to act decisively, with courage and clarity, was already within you? Doubt is not your master, it is a tool, a signal, and a challenge, but only if you refuse to serve it blindly. Doubt is one of the most subtle forces that can control a person, yet it is entirely a creation of the mind. It presents itself as a warning, a question, or a hesitation, and most people accept it as truth without examining its origin. The mind weaves scenarios, imagines outcomes, and magnifies possibilities that may never exist. By giving energy to these imagined fears, doubt gains authority, and people begin to act as if it were reality. Understanding that doubt is a mental construct is the first step toward freedom. The power of doubt exists only when it is obeyed. It has no independent force beyond the attention and energy you provide it. When a person recognizes doubt for what it truly is, a series of thoughts rather than facts, the mind begins to regain control. Doubt becomes a signal, not a master. It is not an enemy that must be destroyed, but a mental habit that must be observed, questioned, and restrained. Awareness of its artificial nature weakens its grip. Most doubt is rooted in past experiences, fear of failure, or imagined consequences. The mind continuously recalls memories and projects them into the future, creating scenarios that feel urgent and threatening. By examining these thoughts critically, one can see that doubt rarely reflects present reality. Observing its patterns allows a person to distinguish between valid caution and unnecessary mental chatter. The recognition of doubt as a construct gives clarity and opens space for conscious decision-making. Doubt often disguises itself as careful reasoning or prudence. It presents arguments, calculations, and endless what-ifs that appear logical on the surface. But this is a trap of the mind, an attempt to maintain control by keeping action suspended. When recognized for what it is, doubt stops dictating the rhythm of life. Decisions can be made with awareness, grounded in clarity and purpose rather than hesitation. Understanding its nature allows the mind to move freely while remaining vigilant, without being enslaved by imaginary threats. Recognizing doubt is not about eliminating it entirely, it is about seeing it for what it is and refusing to obey it blindly. It becomes a tool to sharpen judgment, not a force that paralyzes action. With this understanding, hesitation loses its power, fear becomes manageable, and clarity becomes the guide. Life can then be navigated with confidence, decisiveness and presence, because the mind no longer serves the shadows of imagined uncertainty. Doubt exists, but it no longer controls you. Doubt often grows stronger when it is fed by constant attention. Many people obsess over every thought, every hesitation, and every what if, believing that analyzing endlessly will bring clarity. In reality, obsession gives doubt more energy and power than it deserves. By simply observing doubt without judgment or fixation, you step outside its control and create space for conscious decision-making. Observation is a skill that allows the mind to watch without being consumed. When you observe without obsession, you begin to notice patterns. Certain doubts arise repeatedly, triggered by fear, past experiences, or imagined outcomes. Recognizing these patterns helps distinguish between thoughts that are useful signals and those that are distractions. Doubt becomes an informative guide instead of a controlling force. The mind learns to pause, assess, and then act, rather than reacting blindly to every hesitation that arises. Obsessing over doubt creates unnecessary tension and confusion. It magnifies problems, exaggerates risks, and slows action. Observation without obsession, on the other hand, allows clarity to emerge. By stepping back and simply witnessing your doubts, you gain perspective. The mind becomes a tool for understanding and discernment rather than a servant to imagined threats. Action becomes precise, intentional, and free from the chains of constant worry. This practice also strengthens self-awareness. The more you observe your doubts without being pulled into them, the more you understand your fears, motivations and thought patterns. You become capable of differentiating between constructive caution and destructive hesitation. Doubt no longer dictates your choices, instead, it offers insight when necessary and recedes when it is irrelevant. Observation without obsession transforms doubt from a tyrant into a teacher. By learning to watch without attachment, the mind gains freedom. You are no longer a slave to every fleeting thought or imagined outcome. Doubt remains present, but it does not control your decisions or paralyze your actions. Instead, it becomes a signal, a reminder to pause and reflect, but never to surrender your power. Life becomes a practice of conscious awareness, where clarity, confidence, and purpose guide every step, and doubt serves you rather than enslaves you. Relying on the approval or opinions of others is one of the most subtle ways doubt strengthens its hold. When every decision, every thought, and every action depends on how others will perceive it, the mind becomes trapped in a cycle of hesitation and fear. You begin to question your instincts. Second, guess your choices and delay action, believing that external validation is necessary for correctness. This dependence creates a mental servitude where doubt thrives, feeding on every uncertainty and hesitation. Seeking constant validation disconnects you from your own intelligence. Each person possesses a natural sense of discernment and judgment, but when you look outward for confirmation, you override your inner guidance. Doubt flourishes in this space of dependence, whispering that you are not capable or that your instincts are flawed. The power to act decisively diminishes and decisions become fragmented, influenced by opinions rather than grounded in personal understanding. Trusting yourself does not mean ignoring advice or input from others, but it means making your inner voice the primary guide. When you strengthen confidence in your own insight, doubt loses its ability to dominate. Each decision made with trust in yourself reinforces the mind's capacity to act without constant reassurance. Validation is no longer a crutch, and doubt becomes a manageable companion instead of a controlling master. Constantly seeking approval also slows progress. Life rewards decisive action, not endless deliberation fueled by what others might think. When your focus shifts from pleasing others to aligning with your own awareness and purpose, clarity emerges naturally. The energy wasted on comparison, fear of judgment, or imagined criticism is reclaimed, and the mind becomes a vehicle for confident and deliberate action rather than a playground for doubt. Breaking free from the need for validation is a process of empowerment. Each choice made independently, each action guided by inner wisdom, weakens the grip of doubt and strengthens self-trust. Over time, the mind stops serving external opinions and begins to serve conscious awareness and purpose. Life becomes a path of clarity, courage and self-reliance, where doubt is acknowledged but never allowed to dictate your actions or diminish your confidence. Courage is not the absence of doubt, it is the ability to move forward even when certainty is absent. Most people wait for perfect clarity, ideal conditions, or absolute assurance before taking action, but life rarely provides these. Waiting for certainty allows doubt to grow unchecked, paralyzing the mind and delaying progress. Acting despite uncertainty requires the understanding that hesitation strengthens doubt, while decisive action diminishes its influence. Uncertainty exposes fear and fear is often what prevents action. When the mind is dominated by what might go wrong or what others might think, the opportunity for growth is lost. Courage transforms fear into a companion rather than an obstacle. Each step taken without full assurance builds trust in yourself, proving that action is possible even in the presence of unknown outcomes. The moment you act, doubt loses its power to dictate your behavior. Action in uncertainty sharpens awareness and understanding. Waiting for perfect conditions is an illusion. Life is dynamic and unpredictable. When you act even imperfectly, you gather knowledge, experience, and insight that cannot be obtained through overthinking or avoidance. Each decision becomes a teacher, and each outcome provides clarity for the next step. The very act of moving forward breaks the cycle of hesitation that doubt creates. Consistency in acting despite uncertainty builds resilience. Each time you choose to act without full assurance, the mind grows stronger, more confident, and less enslaved by fear. You learn that failure is not a threat but a lesson, and that hesitation is far more costly than mistakes. Action becomes a habit that reinforces courage, and doubt begins to exist as an observer rather than a master. When action becomes your response to uncertainty, life itself becomes a teacher rather than a threat. You discover that the unknown is not something to fear, but a field in which strength, clarity, and creativity are cultivated. Doubt remains present, but it no longer controls your choices or restricts your movement. Every act taken despite uncertainty strengthens your mastery over yourself and builds the confidence to navigate any challenge with awareness and decisiveness. Courage is not the absence of doubt, it is the ability to move forward even when certainty is absent. Most people wait for perfect clarity, ideal conditions, or absolute assurance before taking action, but life rarely provides these. Waiting for certainty allows doubt to grow unchecked, paralyzing the mind and delaying progress. Acting despite uncertainty requires the understanding that hesitation strengthens doubt, while decisive action diminishes its influence. Uncertainty exposes fear, and fear is often what prevents action. When the mind is dominated by what might go wrong or what others might think, the opportunity for growth is lost. Courage transforms fear into a companion rather than an obstacle. Each step taken without full assurance builds trust in yourself, proving that action is possible even in the presence of unknown outcomes. The moment you act, doubt loses its power to dictate your behavior. Action in uncertainty sharpens awareness and understanding. Waiting for perfect conditions is an illusion. Life is dynamic and unpredictable. When you act, even imperfectly, you gather knowledge, experience, and insight that cannot be obtained through overthinking or avoidance. Each decision becomes a teacher, and each outcome provides clarity for the next step. The very act of moving forward breaks the cycle of hesitation that doubt creates. Consistency in acting despite uncertainty builds resilience. Each time you choose to act without full assurance, the mind grows stronger, more confident, and less enslaved by fear. You learn that failure is not a threat but a lesson, and that hesitation is far more costly than mistakes. Action becomes a habit that reinforces courage, and doubt begins to exist as an observer rather than a master. When action becomes your response to uncertainty, life itself becomes a teacher rather than a threat. You discover that the unknown is not something to fear, but a field in which strength, clarity, and creativity are cultivated. Doubt remains present, but it no longer controls your choices or restricts your movement. Every act taken despite uncertainty strengthens your mastery over yourself and builds the confidence to navigate any challenge with awareness and decisiveness. Fear has a way of disguising itself as reality. The mind takes imagined outcomes, past failures, or worst-case scenarios and presents them as absolute truths. Most people accept these projections without question, allowing fear to dictate their thoughts, emotions, and actions. The first step to liberation is learning to distinguish what is real from what is imagined. Facts exist independently of your mind, but fear thrives on assumptions, exaggerations, and projections. When fear is mistaken for fact, hesitation becomes automatic. Decisions are delayed, opportunities are missed, and doubt strengthens its grip. By consciously examining the evidence, questioning assumptions, and observing reality as it is, you weaken the power of fear. Facts are measurable and verifiable, while fear is subjective and often misleading. Separating the two allows the mind to respond intelligently rather than reactively. This distinction also sharpens awareness. Each time you pause to question whether a fear is grounded in reality, the mind develops clarity and discernment. You begin to see patterns in how fear manipulates perception, how doubt inflates risks, and how hesitation arises from imagined threats. Awareness of these mechanisms allows you to act decisively even in situations that once seemed overwhelming. Fear becomes a signal rather than a master. Separating fact from fear requires courage and discipline. It is uncomfortable to confront imagined dangers, to observe the mind creating scenarios that do not exist, and to refuse automatic reactions. But this practice strengthens resilience and builds confidence. Each time you make a choice based on reality rather than fear, you reclaim control of your mind and actions, reinforcing the habit of conscious decision-making over reactive hesitation. When fact and fear are distinguished clearly, doubt loses its authority. Life becomes navigable because decisions are guided by what is real, not by imagined threats or worst-case projections. Fear still arises, but it no longer dictates behavior. The mind becomes a tool for clarity, awareness, and purposeful action, allowing you to move forward with confidence, courage, and freedom from the tyranny of imagined dangers. Confidence is not granted, it is earned through action and experience. Each decision, no matter how small or imperfect, builds the foundation of self-trust. When you act, even in uncertainty, you prove to yourself that you are capable of navigating challenges. Every choice taken is a step toward reinforcing your own strength, and every outcome, whether successful or a lesson, contributes to a growing sense of mastery over your life. Experience is the teacher that doubt cannot defeat. Hesitation thrives in the absence of action, feeding on imagined threats and worst-case scenarios. But as you take steps forward and witness the results firsthand, doubt loses its authority. Each experience provides data clarity and insight that cannot be obtained by overthinking or avoidance. Confidence emerges naturally as the mind observes that action, even with imperfection, produces understanding and progress. Mistakes and failures are essential to building self-confidence. They are not indicators of weakness, but signals of learning. Each error uncovers a gap in knowledge, a limitation in skill, or an assumption that needs correction. By embracing these experiences without fear or self-condemnation, the mind becomes stronger, more resilient, and more capable of facing future challenges. Confidence grows not in the absence of failure, but in the repeated act of rising and acting despite it. Consistency in action strengthens the habit of self-trust. The more often you make decisions and follow through, the less influence doubt has over your mind. Experience teaches that hesitation is far more costly than mistakes, and that clarity comes through engagement rather than avoidance. Over time, each experience reinforces the understanding that you are equipped to handle uncertainty and that your ability to act is greater than any imagined limitation. Self-confidence built through experience creates freedom. The mind is no longer enslaved by doubt or paralyzed by fear. Action becomes deliberate, choices become decisive, and the energy once consumed by hesitation is redirected toward growth and purpose. Confidence rooted in experience allows you to navigate life with clarity, courage and presence, transforming doubt from a controlling force into a signal that guides learning and progress. Overthinking is one of the greatest obstacles to decisive action. The mind loops endlessly over possibilities, consequences and uncertainties, creating a storm that is often far worse than reality. Each repetition strengthens hesitation, magnifies doubt, and drains energy that could be used for meaningful action. The more you analyze without end, the further you move from clarity and the closer you become to paralysis. Repetitive thinking often confuses options with possibilities. The mind inflates risks, imagines worst-case scenarios and constructs barriers that do not truly exist. Overthinking gives way to imagined fears while obscuring the clear path forward. By recognizing when analysis has become excessive, you reclaim control, allowing the mind to distinguish between necessary reflection and needless rumination. Clarity begins to emerge when the focus shifts from endless mental loops to intentional observation. Focused action is the antidote to overthinking. Each step taken, no matter how small, provides information and experience that overcomes hypothetical scenarios. Action transforms uncertainty into understanding, turning imagined barriers into manageable realities. When the mind is anchored in movement rather than constant speculation, doubt loses its power and confidence begins to grow. The path forward becomes visible because it is illuminated by concrete results rather than imagined fears. Overthinking also masks intuition and inner guidance. The mind becomes overloaded with external possibilities and opinions, drowning the quiet voice of awareness that knows what to do. By reducing mental clutter and limiting analysis, you create space for intuition and clarity to surface. Decisions made from this place are precise, aligned and effective, while overanalyzed choices are hesitant, reactive and often misdirected. Breaking free from overthinking requires practice and discipline. Awareness of the habit is the first step, followed by deliberate action that interrupts endless analysis. Each choice made without excessive mental looping strengthens decisiveness and trains the mind to act from clarity rather than fear. Over time, the tendency to overthink diminishes, leaving a mind that is alert, focused and capable of navigating challenges with confidence, precision and presence. Doubt is often seen as an enemy, a force to be avoided or suppressed, but it can serve a valuable purpose when understood correctly. Instead of letting it control decisions, it can be used as a signal, a guide that highlights areas where awareness or caution is needed. When doubt is treated as a teacher rather than a master, it informs action rather than paralyzing it, offering insight without claiming authority over choice. Observation transforms doubt from a tyrant into a mentor. By examining the origin and nature of each doubt, the mind learns to separate genuine concerns from imagined threats. Some doubts reveal real risks or overlook details, while others are mere reflections of fear or insecurity. Recognizing this distinction allows the mind to respond intelligently, using doubt as feedback rather than a command, and turning hesitation into informed action. Learning from doubt strengthens discernment. Each time doubt is acknowledged without surrendering to it, the mind develops clarity and judgment. Doubt teaches patience, critical thinking, and awareness of potential pitfalls, providing the tools necessary for wiser decisions. Its power is contained and its presence becomes a source of guidance rather than a force that dominates behavior. Doubt as a teacher encourages reflection without interference. It does not demand immediate compliance, but asks the mind to pause, consider and evaluate. This reflective quality ensures that choices are deliberate rather than impulsive, and that actions are rooted in awareness rather than reaction. Over time, the ability to learn from doubt fosters resilience, confidence, and independence of thought. Using doubt as a teacher cultivates mastery over the mind. Its lessons are integrated without surrendering freedom, and fear loses its ability to dictate behavior. Life becomes a process of learning and adaptation, where doubt is acknowledged but never allowed to dominate. Each step taken with awareness transforms uncertainty into wisdom, hesitation into deliberate action, and doubt into a tool that serves growth rather than enslaves the will. Purpose is the foundation that gives life direction and clarity. Without it, the mind drifts aimlessly, and doubt finds fertile ground to grow. When you anchor yourself in clear goals and values, every decision, thought, and action gains alignment. The presence of purpose creates a center of stability that doubt cannot easily disturb, allowing the mind to act with confidence even when uncertainty surrounds you. Anchoring in purpose strengthens focus. Distractions, fears, and imagined threats lose their grip when your actions are guided by a well-defined objective. Doubt thrives in indecision and lack of clarity, but a clear sense of direction cuts through hesitation. Each step taken in alignment with purpose reinforces confidence, builds momentum, and diminishes the influence of internal uncertainty. Purpose acts as a compass when external circumstances are chaotic. Life is unpredictable, and challenges often arise without warning. When anchored in purpose, you can navigate these storms with composure and clarity. Decisions become easier. Priorities are clear, and energy is directed toward meaningful action rather than wasted on hesitation or fear. Doubt loses its power when the mind is oriented toward a larger vision. Living with purpose also cultivates resilience. Challenges that might have been paralyzing become manageable because the mind understands the context of each obstacle. Setbacks are no longer failures, but lessons within the framework of your larger goals. Anchoring yourself in what truly matters transforms doubt from a dominating force into a minor challenge that can be observed and overcome without surrendering to it. Purpose gives meaning to action and strength to the mind. When every choice aligns with your values and objectives, the influence of doubt diminishes naturally. Life becomes a series of deliberate, intentional steps guided by clarity, confidence, and a deep understanding of what truly matters. Anchoring yourself in purpose ensures that doubt exists as a signal to refine understanding rather than as a master that dictates your actions. The unknown is often the greatest source of doubt and fear. When outcomes are uncertain, the mind instinctively imagines worst-case scenarios, inflates risks, and questions every possible decision. Most people retreat or hesitate in the face of the unknown, allowing fear to dominate and paralyze action. Embracing the unknown with awareness, however, transforms this fear into clarity and insight, creating an opportunity for growth rather than a barrier to progress. Awareness in uncertainty means observing what is happening without being consumed by imagined outcomes. It allows the mind to separate what is real from what is projected, preventing fear from becoming a tyrant. By staying present and conscious, you can respond to challenges intelligently rather than react impulsively. Awareness provides a stable platform from which action can be taken with confidence, even when the full picture is not yet visible. When you stop serving your doubts, you reclaim your freedom. The mind may whisper hesitation, the world may present challenges, but your decisions become rooted in clarity, courage, and purpose. Doubt becomes a guide rather than a chain, a signal rather than a master. Every step taken with awareness strengthens your ability to act decisively, turning uncertainty into opportunity. Life no longer controls you You move through it with presence, confidence, and the understanding that your inner power is far greater than any doubt.